On this episode of Locked On Angels, no notes, Angels. No notes. A perfectly executed game, strong pitching, timely hitting, great decisions. So what did they do so well? Well, we got 4 takeaways from the game last night that we're going to share with you. Again, no notes. Great game. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. One of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
We're talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, every single weekday. No matter how you slice it, 5 days a week, we're happy to be here talking Halos baseball with you. On today's show, the league likes what the Angels are doing, but the players do not. And we'll explain in segments 2 and 3. But first, Mike, let's get into that recap against the Yankees. A 4-0 shutout, 29 straight innings of scoreless baseball for the Yankees, going back to that Sunday game against the Red Sox. Happy to oblige Yankee fans, right, Mike?
Yes, absolutely. So a couple takeaways, 4 of them actually from this game last night, and no complaints from me, John. I can't speak for you, but no complaints from me because it was a great game. First takeaway is Kyle Hendricks was the professor last night.
Yeah.
That guy hit his spots. That guy did exactly what he needed to do. He had the Yankees all over the place, had no idea what was coming. They were falling asleep at the plate. It was really a professional start by Kyle Hendricks last night. 6 innings, no runs, 4 hits. John, just 1 walk.
That's
this
huge.
team and the starting rotation specifically, they've proven if they don't walk guys, they're going to keep you in these games. And Kyle Hendricks did that last night. John, 9 strikeouts, his most since the COVID year, 2020. He threw 98 pitches. 70 of those pitches were strikes. And Johnny, what did he do well? Walk us through that.
Yeah, you see a good mix of the changeup and the sinker. 11 called strikes on the sinker means he got the Yankees to look at 11 strikes last night. And then he wasn't throwing his sinker. When he wasn't throwing his sinker or change, he was throwing the fastball. He got 4 swings and misses on that fastball, throwing it around 89 miles an hour. One thing I thought was hilarious was, his old pal, Paul Goldschmidt from the Cardinals Cubs days, he gets him on 86 right down the middle. But because he's changing speeds, Mike, you get a guy like that to swing right through it. You get him out ahead of the pitch and he'll swing right through it. This was his best start in an Angels uniform, lowered his ERA to 4.79, lowered his walks and hits per innings pitched, his whip to 1.29, meaning 1.3 hitters on base essentially per inning. 3 consecutive starts going at least 6 innings. 6 of his last 9 starts, he's gone 6 innings. And in those 9 starts, he's given up less than 4 runs in 7 of those starts. Jose Soriano tossed 7 scoreless innings last night. Kyle Hendricks threw 6 scoreless innings tonight. The first time Angels starting pitching has had consecutive outings of 6+ scoreless innings at Yankee Stadium, new or old, since Chuck Finley and Omar Olivares from May 12th to 13th, 1999. Wondering where all the Hendricks haters are at after this start. Because again, the Angels got him a lead, Mike. And what did he do? Shutdown inning after shutdown inning after shutdown inning. And that's what we want. And that's what he was able to do. And we haven't seen that from some of the other guys in the staff. So it's nice for the Angels to get a lead and then have the starting pitcher come right back out and keep the Yankees from scoring right now.
Yeah. Second takeaway, Johnny. Angels hit for contact instead of home runs last night, and it worked. It worked. The Halos got on the board in the top of the second after Logan O'Hoppe doubled. Then Rengifo followed with an RBI single to right field. They did something similar in the top of the third. Zach Neto singled, and then Nolan Shonowell followed with a beautiful bunt single down the third base line.
I was going to ask you about that, Mike. And did you, because you noticed last night where he saw the third baseman playing off the line. And so that's why he poked that ball the other way for that double that ended up scoring Christian Moore. It was the winning run. And then last night, same thing, playing off the line. And so what does he do? A beautiful bunt to the left side, down the line, is able to move the runner over and be safe at first base too.
Yeah. Then Mike Trout comes up. He singles to load the bases. 3 consecutive singles. I love this because it puts pressure on the pitcher. It puts pressure on the defense. They got to make a play, right? Bases loaded. And then Taylor Ward just kind of pushes a ball into left field through the and third base hole. 2 runs score. The Angels have hit 302 with the bases loaded this season. So they've been pretty successful with the bases loaded. And we've said it on this show pretty often. Home runs, they're great, but they can be rally killers. Consecutive hits, consecutive singles. It makes the pitcher throw more pitches. They have to throw from the stretch, and it also causes them to throw more pitches under stress. So as the pitch count starts to grow, maybe they're at like 50 pitches in 4 innings, but the truth is that those 50 pitches, maybe the last 15 of them were under stress. You have runners on. You had to really think through what you're going to do. So those are more impactful pitches than if he gave up a home run and the bases were clear, then he can go back to resetting himself on the mound. Yeah. I love this. Plus, causes the defense to have to move around. It causes the defense to have to think and communicate, right? And you cause a little chaos on the base. You can see that it causes the defense to, what do we do here and how do we move here? You saw a single last night off of Jess Chisholm's hand, right off his glove into left field. He just didn't get over because he's having to guard the line. And so all of this consecutive hitting, it's really helpful to the Angels. And if they could put it together like this more often, I think they'd put a lot of pressure on other teams and you would find them winning more games.
You know what I would do is I would just preach, hey, let's load the bases. Huh? We're hitting 300.
Right.
The base is loaded.
Right.
Like, let's get there. And so however you got to get there, batters 1 through 3, then the 4th batter comes up with the bases loaded. Let's do that more often. Yeah. Right. Look at the things that make you successful and follow that trajectory rather than trying to force a square peg in a round hole and hit for power and constantly swinging up at stuff. Right. And so this is, again, great contact, great decision-making by Nolan Shonowell to put that bunt down. He saw where the defense was lined up, and there you go, sneak it in. And we always used to say how funny it would be for somebody like Pujols to just lay down a bunt, especially when the shift was a thing, and just put that thing down and watch them run in to get that ball and see if they can make a play or you're safe at first base, right?
Yeah, and I think what you're doing is you're working towards rallying the troops in that inning. And so if your philosophy is, hey guys, whatever you need to do to get on base to load the bases, we're really good. Let's do that. And I love that they're not trying to, pop the ball over the fence. They're not trying to swing as hard as they can. They're just trying to make contact. And I think that's why O'Hoppe got the double. He was just trying to make contact in that inning. In fact, that double snapped a career-long streak of 15 games without an extra base hit. We're going to talk about Logan O'Hoppe on tomorrow's show and why he's struggling. We were right, by the way, about why he's struggling. O'Hoppe notices it too, so we're going to talk about that on tomorrow's show. His last extra base hit, John, May 23rd against the Marlins, so it's been a really long time. And this team continued to play small ball all the way into the 7th inning. Angels got Rengifo on with a single, and then Joe Adell reaches on catcher's interference. And then, John, what did I see Christian Moore do? Did he lay down a sack bunt? That was incredible, right?
Yeah, great to see that from him. That's what we've been asking this whole time, and it was the perfect time to do it. Neto gets hit by a pitch on the jersey. Good on him for knowing that he got hit on the jersey, and it was very clear. And then Shonowell grounded out to first, but a run score. So, a productive out and an add-on run late in the game to make it 4-0 instead of 3-0. So that way you don't have to worry about who's closing the game, whether it's Jansen or Detmers. And in this case, Strickland ended the game. Wasn't a safe situation. Let's talk about that bullpen, Mike. The third takeaway, they were great. Once again, just excellent. Detmers threw a perfect inning with 2 strikeouts, one to Aaron Judge, who was 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts in this one. 14 pitches, 11 strikes. He went, listen to this. Mike, are you ready for this?
I'm ready for this.
Like, hold on to your butts, everybody.
Yeah.
Reed went 0-2, 0 balls, 2 strikes on all 3 hitters.
Unreal.
He was up on all 3 hitters and was able to get 2 strikeouts in those situations. Listen to this. Over his last 16 outings, 17 innings total, just 1 run, 26 strikeouts, 8 walks, and 10 hits. And then my guy, Hunter Strickland, comes in to finish out this game. And what's funny is, wasn't originally signed by the Angels over the offseason. He was with Texas, didn't pitch well in AAA with them, so they let him go. And then the Angels brought him in, and he's been phenomenal. 1-0, a 0.00 ERA, Mike, in 13 games, 14 2/3 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts, a .75 whip. That's three quarters of a person getting on base at every inning. The bullpen since June 1st, 5-1 with a 2.92 ERA in 52 1/3 innings. And remember, there's that Connor Brogdon, Kenley Jansen down by 7 blow up that took place on Sunday. So you take that out of the equation, their ERA is even better than a 2.92. Listen to this, 8.25 strikeouts per 9 and just 3.27 walks per 9. Number to pay attention to, the fielding independent pitching, 4.43. So essentially, whatever a pitcher can control, home runs, walks, and hit by pitches, if that were all that they could control, it would be a 4.5 ERA, sort of, right? 4.43 fielding independent pitching. So that's something to want to pay attention to. And yeah, there's been guys on base, especially with like Kenley Jansen. But the thing is he's been able to leave them on base. I never feel scared when Kenley lets somebody get on, whether that's a walk or a hit.
Me neither.
I'm like, it's part of what he does. And for me, that's A-okay.
Yeah. Fourth takeaway, John. I said it in the opening. No notes. This was a great game.
Yeah.
Excellent performance. Small ball, timely hitting, great pitching, good decisions. Hey, why don't we run it back tonight? I think that would be really smart, right? The Angels are 35-37. So here we are playing up to really good teams and not playing well against those bad teams. Now, there are some anomalies in there like the A's and some other teams, but the Angels need to figure out what they're doing against Dodgers and Yankees.
Yeah.
And then hit copy and paste and repeat that against the Orioles and White Sox and other teams under 500, because something happens when they play these really bad teams and they play really bad. But last night's game and the night before, this team was so different. They look like a completely different team. And again, last night, they just were a complete team. They did everything that they were supposed to do. They moved the ball, productive outs, made bunts, made contact. They did strike out over 10 times. I get that that's part of their game, but they didn't allow it to affect them when they had runners on base, John. They shortened up their swings. They went the opposite way. This is why they're winning games like this, and they sometimes lose that strategy when they play teams that are under 500, like the Orioles this last weekend.
You love to see guys like Luis Rengifo go 2 for 4 when somebody like Joe Adell doesn't get a hit. He did get on base because of that catcher's interference, but he also had 2 strikeouts in this one. And so it's nice to see guys pick each other up, which is something also I don't think we've seen a lot of, Mike. And so it's nice because it's been sink or swim with everybody. Either everybody's hot or everybody's cold. And we haven't had a good mix of like, well, Joe's struggling, but Rengifo picked him up, or, Nolan's on fire right now, and maybe Neto's not doing so great. I know Neto had a good night too, but you know what I'm saying? It's just the fact is guys picking each other up where half the lineup is helping out the other half that's not doing so great, something that we haven't seen a lot of. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, the league likes the Angels, but the players don't. We're going to explain what that means over our next 2 segments. We'll get into those conversations coming right up.
Everydayers, let Monarch Money be your personal CFO. They're giving you full visibility, control over your finances because, come on, you struggle with controlling your finances. So Monarch Money is here to help you out. And they're not just a budgeting app that tell you, hey, you're spending more than you're bringing in. It's a complete financial command center. It's going to allow you to track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. You can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. And when you have money conversations with family members, with your partner, with your spouse, it's going to go smooth because you can track everything with Monarch Money. You can set goals and you can stay on the same page without all of the stress. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Go to their website, monarchmoney.com, and when you check out, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get 50% off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Mike, interesting thought here. Baseball is rooting for the Angels to succeed. What in the world are we talking about? Well, here's the thing. If they win under the circumstances that they are in, it could be a strategy for the future for other teams. So what are the Angels doing, Michael?
They're trying to be competitive while keeping the costs under control. And here's how they're doing it. And we see it as everydayers every day. They're bringing up their top prospects much sooner than what's typical in baseball. Now they get a lot of garbage for that. Like, this guy's not ready and you shouldn't bring this guy up. Now, when other teams do it, like the A's, when they brought up Nick Kurtz, there was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is a great decision. So it's interesting that the Angels get trashed for it, but other teams don't. That's another segment. But it does allow the Angels to try and compete and do this with a more manageable payroll for players. And then they're also surrounding their young players with serviceable veterans that can fill in needs in the roster. And here's, Johnny, why the league loves this approach. It allows young prospects to prove themselves much sooner. And if those prospects, if they do well and get a contract extension, the contract extension is still cost effective. Obviously, most long-term deals with older players are big money deals, like Mike Trout and Juan Soto and players like that.
Well, and on that note, everyone who has said so far, like, Angels better lock down Zach Neto and Logan O'Hoppe and Nolan Schanuel before they get better and their price tag goes up. Yes, but they're still going to be cheaper than a, full-on free agent like somebody who, you think about the Rafael Devers trade and the extension he signed and how he's with the Giants. I mean, the Giants have been trying to land a huge free agent for a long time, and that's another factor is who knows if this guy wants to come and play at your team. And we've spoken often a lot on this show, especially during the offseason of, it would be great to have that guy, but do they even want to come to Anaheim? And that's also a factor. So to lock these guys up, even if their price tag goes up, exponentially, depending on how well they do year over year, still going to be a more affordable deal than some of those free agent contracts.
Yeah, these smaller contracts are big contracts, but they're not going to be like they were like a Mike Trout or a Juan Soto. And then the reality is that if the prospects don't work out, the philosophy is we'll grab some veterans, fill in the pieces that you need to fill in. And if you fall out of the race, then you can trade those veterans for better pieces. Now, the Angels have done this. They've done this well. I think that this is probably one of the best things that Perry Minasian has done. He deserves a lot of critique for a lot of other areas. Angels haven't won as with him as the GM, but he has made some really great trades, trading veterans to get good young pieces. I think the best trade he made was the Carlos Estevez trade for George Clausen, Sam Aldeguerri. Maybe the best trade as far as prospects, but maybe perhaps the best trade as far as impact was the Brandon Marsh for Logan O'Hoppe trade, because that was a huge deal, obviously, for the Halos. And now Brandon Marsh has been struggling with the Phillies. I'm always a fan of Brandon Marsh, by the way. Currently, the Angels have 8 of their first-round picks on the roster, and they include the last 5 picks. Those last 5 picks are under 25, and so they're young and they're ready to go. Now, John, league sources have said that the Angels are being watched closely, and if they succeed, the league is taking notes and are planning on maybe working this strategy out. It's kind of like the Moneyball strategy, but they do it in their own sort of way. So I guess the big question is, we haven't seen the Angels succeed with this approach. So can they, and do we see the Angels setting the tone for the rest of the league, John?
As an Angel fan, Mike, I have to say that it is a lot of fun to see guys like Zach Neto and Nolan Shawnuel, Ohapi, even Joe Adell, who's taken a long time to be something, right? And I really enjoy seeing a young crop of players. I like that Christian Moore is up. I know he's still swinging and missing. I know he's still struggling in that regard, but I'd like to see these young guys playing at this level and having a modicum of success. I know they're 2 games under 500 right now. I think what makes me suspicious about this conversation is this. When you say baseball is rooting for the Halos to succeed, I hear owners and executives are rooting for the Halos to succeed. And the reason why is they don't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the ones to spend money, and ownership, whether it's Artie Moreno or anybody else, we see it with the Pirates. We see it all over the place. We see it with the Rockies, certainly, right? We see it all over baseball that owners are only interested in that bottom line. And we talk about it with the Angels. Their entire strategy relies on, hey, did we make 1 cent over what we spent last year? And that's frustrating. And so, yes, in some ways, it's great to see these young guys move through the system quickly, but it's also hindered them in the draft, right? And so you think about this upcoming draft. Are the Angels, if let's say the projections say, oh, Ethan Holiday easily going to the Angels. Well, he's a high school kid, Mike. And so are the Angels going to be patient and draft somebody like that? Probably not, which is a shame. But at the same time, it's affected the way that they're bringing up these young guys and shaping their major league roster. So perhaps you could have had somebody like Ethan Holiday that you would develop year over year over year until he's ready. But instead, they're getting those college guys, 1, because I don't think they trust their own system of development. And 2, they're trying to reinforce the major league roster now, which is the whole point of this conversation and this exercise. But again, it has affected them in ways that I don't think we've quite seen yet. Think about that all pitcher draft, right? And there were some names that went in that draft that Perry Manassian did, even before and after Sam Bachman, right? And he was our number 1 pick in that all pitcher draft. Even if they had gone after some pitchers, I think that there were some in that draft that are superstars now. I think maybe George Kirby was a part of that draft and somebody the Angels could have easily gotten. So I know it was the first year, probably the scouting department wasn't great for Perry Manassian, probably inherited a lot of stuff from the old regime and whatnot. But I say all that because the way the Angels are influencing the major league roster right now is going to have long-term effects on some of the players they could have developed, some of the players they could have drafted. And all of that to say, I think it's just a way for ownership to go, hey, the Angels can do it, then maybe we can save some money and we don't need it. I mean, look at what Boston's are in right now. They got rid of that Rafi Devers contract. And I know they signed Bregman. They got Trevor Story. They got Lucas Giolito, right? They spent some money, but they've also brought up Christian Campbell and Marcelo Mayer, right? And a lot of young guys on that team. So it seems like they're kind of following it right now, but they also have the veteran support. Like we could have used a Bregman over the offseason, right? Now, depending on how you feel about cheating Bregman and whatnot, but we could have used a guy like that on this roster, but the Angels won't do that. And here is why, because they have so much money wrapped up in Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout that we're not going to see them spend on the Bregman level of veterans. They'll get their Travis d'Arnaud's and their Kyle Hendricks, but they will not spend on the Bregman level the way that the Red Sox have. And I know the Red Sox have struggled too, but at the same time, they, coming into yesterday, they had the 3rd wild card spot. So I know that's a long way of saying, to me, it's just ownership trying to find a way to save money. But if it works for the Angels, as a fan, I really enjoy it. But what do you think on my thoughts?
Well, this really all kind of stems from an article The Athletic wrote that, and we'll do a second article in the next segment about a whole different topic, similar to what we're talking about right now. But it really kind of blossomed from this idea that the Dodgers are ruining baseball because they're spending all the money. And what's interesting about that is that I think you're right in your differentiation. It's the owners that are going, oh, we could be successful and not have to spend a bunch of money like the Dodgers did, right? Like they're getting excited about that. Here's the reality. The Angels have been running with this strategy maybe for 3 years, maybe 4 years now. And so what has it brought? It hasn't really brought much, right? This is the best season out of those 4 years that they've been running with this strategy, and they're 2 games under 500. Now, if they finish at 500 and then next year they end up being over 500 and make the playoffs, then it might give it some credence, and some people might go, hey, look what we can do here. But right now, it's really just presented itself as meh, right? It's kind of mid, right? It's just kind of there. It's not really great. It's not really bad. It's just kind of existing. And I really think that it boils down to finances for the owners. What we'll talk about in the next segment is the perspective that players have of other organizations, specifically of the Angels, and their perspective is very different than the owner's perspective.
And that's why I think, if they weren't so wrapped up in the Rendon and Trout contracts, that you could bring in some worthwhile veterans to supplement this team. And I think that we would be much better off than where they are now. Perhaps they're over 500. And I'm not saying I want to get rid of Trout. I am saying I want to get rid of Rendon as soon as possible, but we're stuck with that anchor until after next season. So perhaps when there's some money freed up, we'll see some contract extensions, and we'll see the Angels operate on a level that brings in some free agents that are worth spending money on.
Do you have trouble trying to find good coffee? It's hard to find good coffee anywhere.
Not me.
And I know you live in a different town, and my town sucks, and so that's the problem. So here's our solution, John. It's trade coffee. Yeah. Trade coffee's been great for us. I'm not a coffee drinker, but my wife is, and I want to keep her happy, right? And she loves good coffee, and so that's why we love Trade Coffee. It's the #1 coffee destination. They deliver fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. If you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast for you. And here's what's great about it. You go to their website, you can take an online quiz, literally finish it in under a minute, and Trade's going to match you with the perfect coffee. And if you don't like it, then you can just retake the quiz to get matched with your favorite coffee. Or if you don't even want to take the quiz, you can just select your favorite coffee. So they have all sorts of options on their website. We got matched with Clatch House Coffee House Espresso, and it was delicious, according to my wife. She loves that. In fact, she ran out, so we're waiting for Trade to maybe send us some more. Yeah. Hint. And exactly. So you can actually get coffee that's fresh. It smells amazing. Probably the best coffee you're going to ever have. And you can do that at drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. And when you go to that website, you're going to get 50% off your 1-month trial. Again, drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. Get 50% off your first month trial.
So The Athletic did an anonymous player poll in the spring. They asked more than 100 players which opposing managers they would and wouldn't want to play for, and then which rival organizations have good reputations and bad reputations among the players. And the Angels were included in some of those conversations. Here's what players had to say about our favorite team. First, when players were asked which manager aside from your own would you most likely play for, Bruce Bochy got 20 of the total 121 votes. Of course, he's the manager of the Rangers right now, led them to a World Series 2 years ago. Ron Washington got 4 of the votes. And the reason for the players voting for Bochy, most of them said he wins a lot of championships. I like the old school style. And then the reasons some players didn't vote for Wash, they said, because I want to use my cell phone. So apparently that locker room cell phone thing was a big deal, even though it's not that big of a deal. And I think it's actually been beneficial. So yeah, interesting. So Bochy got most of those votes. Ron, they got some votes, 4 votes out of the 121, but most of them said they wouldn't want to play for Ron Washington.
Yeah, that's a second question. Which organization has a good reputation amongst players, which has a bad? So surprise, surprise, Dodgers got the most votes, 82 votes for a good reputation, none for bad reputation. The Angels did not get any votes for a good reputation. They got 19 for a bad reputation. Worst teams were the White Sox and the A's. And the common answer about the Angels, John, I thought this was interesting. They just don't know what they're doing top to bottom. That's what I've heard. Now, we'll come back to that statement in just a moment. On the Dodgers' good reputation, players said, You win the World Series, and then you go out and do what they did to add to your team. That's fantastic. That's what you want. That's how it's supposed to be. They also said Dodgers take care of their players and their families, and they excel on the player development side. Now, here's the reality. No surprises from this article about what people said about the Angels. I did think that the comment, "That's what I've heard about the Angels," was interesting, because we've talked often on this show about the Angels needing a narrative-changing season.
Yeah.
And this potentially could be the narrative-changing season for them, because they are 2 games under 500, much better than where they were last year and what they achieved last year. But, John, is it just hearsay, or do you think that there are players with evidence, right? Like, if you were to ask the Angels and they were not going to receive any sort of consequences or repercussions, what do you think our best friend Logan O'Hoppe would say? Or what do you think Zach Neto would say? Or what do you think Nolan Shawnuel would say if you could get into their hearts and their minds and there was nothing off limits?
I think that somebody like Logan O'Hoppe would still speak highly of the organization, because I think that he puts a lot of his trust, especially as a young player, in the coaching staff and the development staff. Mike, we've seen a good relationship between Zach Neto and Ron Washington that really blossomed last year, but you have to get behind all of that. You have to get behind what's on the field, and that goes back to the front office. Now, to be fair, you have guys like Kyle Hendricks at the end of his career coming in and being signed, because that's about all that you can attract. Now, I know Kevin Newman stinks this year, but for him to come to the Angels the way that he did after the year that he's had in Arizona, I think he could have ended up somewhere else and probably would have been hitting better with another team. I'm sure that a lot of it has to do with the Angels stink, right? But the fact is, there's a middle ground, right? There's a Darno who's willing to come here, and a Kyle Hendricks who's willing to come here. Seth Lugo and Michael Walker were willing to go to the Royals because they saw what they had going on. And so when we talk about narrative shifting seasons, you go from a team like the Royals that lost over 100 games that season, and then Seth Lugo and Michael Walker go, you know what? They got something good going on there. And that's because of what's on the field. So I think here's the splitting hairs here. What you see on the field has to be front and center with the Angels organization. If you get into the dynamics of the front office, if you get into all the bull crap about, Artie Moreno and the city and the mayor and Tyler Skaggs and drug issues behind the scenes and former players and all that stuff, that's really hard to want to go, yeah, I want to go there. Right. So I think in addition to having a narrative shifting season where you look at what's going on the field and you go, man, those guys are having a lot of fun. I bet you if I was their left fielder, I could do something. Or if I was a starting pitcher there, I could help get this team over the hump. Now, that's asking a lot because people obviously want to go to where they know that they're going to win. And with the Angels, that means you're probably not going to get the top free agents out there. And Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha were not the top free agent starting pitchers that year, but they were enough for the Royals to turn things around and have a great starting rotation in addition to the young guys to get into the playoffs last year. It's like we just talked about, right? If the Angels had the resource available, which they do, by the way, they just refuse to go over the luxury tax. If they had the resource available, you could get a high-level free agent, but instead you're going to get the Seth Lugos and the Michael Wachas, and sometimes they might be enough, and sometimes they might not. And for the Angels, it's been a lot of might not, right? With some of the free agent guys they've been able to bring in. This year, I think they did a whole lot better with their free agents. They weren't flashy, they weren't great, but they're here to supplement what the young guys are doing, and the young guys leading the charge. So when it comes to a narrative shifting season, it has to be 110% what's happening on the field. Because again, if you get into the dynamics of the organization, which is a lot of what the players are talking about here, I think that's where the problem lies. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think what you see on the field is a belief in young players. It's probably more about finances than it is about big belief in their performances. However, those young players were drafted, developed at the best of their ability, and then were put right into the lineup, and look what they're doing. And so I think as a young player, and maybe even an older player, like, I want to come play with them. I think that's why Mike Trout hasn't demanded a trade. I think Trout looks around and goes, I want to help these guys, right? And he's still working on trying to help these guys because he hasn't really done so in the last few years. And this year was hurt doing better, but was hurt this year too. So I think the narrative about this Angel team, if you get out of the weeds, you look at this team and you go, wow, they actually seem like they have some fire and some fight. And they brought up Christian Moore. And if Christian Moore starts performing, they've got a really strong core of guys that really want to win. And so maybe if they added me, or maybe if I went over there at the end of my career and could still pitch like a Kyle Hendricks, maybe I could really help them. I think that the narrative could begin to shift this year because they're developing players. Here's how they're developing players. You ready? Let's go. That's how they're developing players. Right. Is that right or wrong? Well, baseball traditionalists will say, and I used to be opposed to it, but now I'm watching these guys on the field and going, I actually kind of like it. They just need to let them run with it now. So don't sit Christian Moore. Don't put him down. Don't have him just play every once in a while. He needs to be in there. And so far he's done that. And I think it's been a pretty successful start to him, even though he's not had the numbers to show for it, because he's got that triple. He bunted last night. He's made a great play at home. He's got baseball IQ, baseball acumen. You can see it in him. And so I think players from around the league can see that and go, I kind of like that. I'm interested in this team.
Let's revisit this because this came from spring of this year. Let's revisit this in a year from now after all the Dodgers pitchers' arms have fallen off and see if players are like, yeah, I want to go there and pitch for them, right? Well, let's revisit that next spring.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now check out Locked On MLB Game Night. It's every game, every night, all season long. And you can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube, get in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. We always do our best to try to get back to you guys, each and every one of you there. Mike, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show?
Ohapi is struggling. We named why he's struggling. Ohapi shared the exact same thing. So we're going to talk about what it is and what he's doing to make changes on tomorrow's show. That's Locked On Angels Thursday, right here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
I got nothing. No notes.
No notes. No notes, Angels.